Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in yet again. I want to share with you guys a really interesting model that came from We Knives, designed by Elijah Isham. And this is part of his Odyssey series, but we're going to take a look at the Arrakis specifically. So, moderate size, but highly imaginative exercise in CNC capabilities. So we'll go through the specs, overall impressions, all the good stuff. There are about, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 different versions of this knife, but this particular one, which obviously is my favorite, is the CFB, or the carbon fiber B model. Some of the versions do have titanium overlays, which we'll talk about why it's an overlay, and some of them have carbon fiber, but I thought the champagne color with the carbon fiber with the coated blade and the satin flats was the best combo personally. So again, if you want to track this thing down at the major retailers like Blade HQ and others, that's what the model number is. So anyways, let's jump into it real quick. We'll just start with the specs. So this one is a 3.5 inch blade. Overall length is about 8 inches, so obviously the handle is about 4.5 there. Let's switch these two. In pictures, though, it actually looks significantly larger, I think, than it really is. Size-wise, it's not too different than the Parrot 2, to be honest. In fact, it's probably right around the same size as the Parrot 2, assuming the camera's showing that properly. The blade stock is 0.15. It does use M390 as the steel choice, and it is a flat grind, kind of a mid-height flat grind. The weight, for an 8-inch knife, this is actually quite surprising, or maybe it's not surprising, but it only comes in at 3 ounces. Obviously a ton of machining, ton of material removed to make that possible. So yeah, handle about 0.57 at the thickest portion, but yeah, let's do some macros on this one, because I think that's what you're going to be here for, is to just kind of see this one up close. And this thing came razor sharp. In another video, it accidentally caught me, and cut me pretty good. I bled for my art, though. There's Elijah's maker's mark. So anyways, so as I was mentioning, this is part of what he called his Odyssey series. It was a 3-part series. He designed this years ago. The first knife in the series has yet to be made. Perhaps that's coming. This was the second knife in the series, the Arrakis. And then the third knife in the series was the Eschaton, and that was released prior. And honestly, that knife met with quite a bit of fanfare. You know, I think people understood that it was a halo project in terms of machining. What the manufacturer We Knives wanted to do was basically say, hey, if we want to, we can create and engineer some of the craziest things with the best of them. So this isn't a continuation of the Eschaton. In fact, in terms of design sequence, this was actually designed before the Eschaton, but they produced the Eschaton first. So this one is kind of, I don't know, it's less artistic, but it actually has 30% more machine time than the We Knives Eschaton. So very labor intensive from a machining standpoint, and perhaps even a design standpoint. Although despite how much machining has gone into this knife, the price, about $330, again, depends on what version you go with, that's actually a pretty surprising price considering the amount of machine time and, you know, the anodizing process and doing the satin flats and all sorts of craziness. So we'll talk about that here a little bit more. But again, from a design point, it's a little more toned down than the Eschaton, really. Obviously, this isn't perhaps the best knife for food prep. I think that goes without saying. You know, there's a lot of really interesting holes here in the blade, so perhaps use something else. But yeah, it does use kind of a mid-height flat here. But again, take a look at the machining on the blade, the way that it ties into the handle from a design standpoint. And it's one really interesting continuous flow. The action on this thing is surprisingly smooth and fast. Let's watch it. So they did a really, really good job with the action. Only minor complaint would be that they didn't incorporate a detent ramp. So, you know, if you just open it a smidge, you either have to overcome the detent ramp or, whoops, slipped. Or when you open it, just open it up past the detent ramp. So let's look at the flipper tab. Does have some texture, which is nice. It is definitely at a 90-degree angle. See there how it fits into the design, but it opens up quite easily. Now, unlike the Eschaton, you can't open this with your thumb or with you know, like a middle finger flick. At least I can't. Again, someone out there might be able to. Okay, well. All right, so I can force it open with the thumb if I really want to, although I feel more comfortable just using the flipper tab, to be honest. So there's that. Carbon fiber is really nice, no voids. You've got the Wii logo here, and it does use an integral backspacer, and then these carbon fiber pieces are actually bolted on to the integral backspacer. And if we can take a look inside here, I don't know if you can see, but the titanium basically goes up to about here, and then it stops, and the carbon fiber continues to become the pivot. So again, pretty intensive from an engineering standpoint. A couple of really nice features are the milling here. You see how it's like concaved on both sides. Then they did some cutouts here to get into the lock bar, so very, very comfortable from that standpoint. Same chamfers here on the back. Again, very comfortable. Look at the way the pocket clip integrates. And as I was mentioning earlier, you know, this one, you know, from a machining and design standpoint, should be considered a Halo project too, but with the short attention span of enthusiast communities, you know, this knife came out and it just kind of came out. There wasn't the same fanfare or interest or love and hate that was associated with the Eschaton, even though it deserves equally as much, if not more praise, considering 30% additional machine time. You do have a forward finger choil, and the pivot here, the front part of the frame, is actually meant to be part of that. So, you know, you can come back. Let me show you. You can come back and, you know, grip it like so, and your thumb has a nice spot to kind of nestle up into. In my hand, it's comfortable enough. It's not like an amazing grip for me. I actually prefer to choke up on it, and I find this grip to be quite a bit more comfortable for me. But the front part of the handle here, or the pivot, is actually a really good spot for your finger to kind of lock around and find a lot of traction, so you don't feel like you're going to travel up the blade. So I do enjoy that there are multiple grips on this thing. I think if you have smaller hands than I do, this grip would actually be quite comfortable for some of you. So yeah, let's take a look at the pivot. Again, M390 designated right there, super clean. They really kept the markings to a minimum and just have the, you know, the Wii logo pivot there. So yeah, but a really interesting knife, and you know, I had quite a few DMs asking me when I'd get to this video. I think a lot of you guys, well, this may not be one that you'd necessarily purchase or carry. Certainly people were interested in seeing this knife, at least in high def. There's the pocket clip. Kind of recesses, it looks like it recesses into the handle a bit because the carbon fiber pieces are bolted on around it. But yeah, just an extraordinary amount of milling and work, and it makes this one of the most interesting knives. So, you know, Elijah basically said, you know, this is kind of a happy median between an everyday carry and an art knife. And that really was kind of the purpose of it. If you're looking at this and saying, you know what, I like this, but it might be a little too much for me. Another one also produced by WE is his Polaroid model. And this is his extremely modern interpretation of a swayback design. Also incorporates kind of the integral back spacer. It has these floating thumb studs and an opening hole. But this is probably my favorite design from him thus far, although, you know, again, super cool, but this one's probably my favorite. So again, if you're thinking this is a little much, maybe check out the Pleroma here. This does run on bearings as well, and yeah, just a really cool piece also. So Elijah, as always, has quite a few other designs in the works at the moment with various manufacturers. So we'll be seeing some new designs probably later this year from him, whether it's with WE or Kaiser or under his own brand where he has things produced now as well. But anyways, so that was a look at the Arrakis in carbon fiber and champagne anodizing. So comments or questions, let me know. Hopefully you guys enjoyed taking a look at this really cool, really interesting, really machine heavy CNC produced knife. So as always, you can follow me on Instagram for more daily content, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care.